The courthouse smelled like floor polish and faint desperation. Marlena adjusted the stiff collar of her dress uniform and sat down on the wooden bench outside courtroom 4B. The wool of the jacket, heavy with metals and memory, scratched at her neck. But she welcomed the discomfort, it helped her stay alert. She glanced at the ticking clock on the wall. 9:26 a.m. 4 minutes to go. The hallway buzzed with quiet tension. Lawyers whispered strategies to clients. A toddler fussed in a stroller. Somewhere, a bailiff chuckled too loudly at a joke. Marlena ignored it all. Her eyes remained fixed on the double doors at the end of the hall. Across from her, Derek leaned against the wall, legs crossed, relaxed in his custom-tailored navy suit. His new wife, Natalie, half his age, twice as smug, scrolled through her phone. Derek caught Marlena's eye and smirked. "You really went all out, huh?" he said, nodding at her uniform. "Trying to win a custody battle with nostalgia?" Marlena didn't answer. She had learned long ago that silence unsettled him more than anything she could say. He leaned forward, voice lower. "You think that thing on your chest makes you a better parent? PTSD doesn't come with a mute button, Marlena. You snap in the middle of the night, who's there to protect Josh then?" Her jaw clenched. She willed herself not to react. It was all part of his strategy. Paint her as unstable, unfit, broken. He had always known how to twist her truth into something ugly. A bailiff opened the doors. Family Court, Case 2847. Howard vs. Miles. Marlena stood, her movements precise, rehearsed. The courtroom was modest, paneled and aged mahogany, the American flag drooping slightly behind the bench. The judge, a man in his early 60s with deep lines around his eyes, looked up from a file as she walked in. His gaze paused on her uniform. A flicker of amusement touched his lips, just a twitch, but enough to see a smirk. As if she were playing dress-up, she saluted instinctively. "Old habits died hard." "You can take your seat, Ms. Miles," he said, tone flat. As she sat at her table, she caught the judge's eye again. This time, his gaze lingered on the medal above her left breast pocket. It wasn't just any decoration. It was the silver star. The smirk faded. Opposite her, Derek whispered something to his lawyer. Marlena kept her hands folded. Her palms were sweating. The judge cleared his throat. "We're here today to review custody arrangements for Joshua Miles, age 12. Ms. Miles, you're representing yourself, is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor." He adjusted his glasses. "You've submitted documents supporting your service record and psychological evaluations from the VA?" "I have." "And copies were sent to the court and opposing counsel?" Derek's lawyer, slim, polished, the kind who smiled too much, rose. "Your Honor, if I may, Mr. Howard has concerns about Ms. Miles' capacity to provide a stable home environment. We have statements from teachers and a neighbor that." "I'll hear both sides in full," the judge interrupted. Marlena didn't look at Derek. Instead, she looked down at a folded note in her hand. Josh had written it that morning. "Good luck, Mom. I believe in you." 4 words. That's all she needed. As the proceedings began, she settled her shoulders back. She'd fought through sandstorms, firefights, and nights so quiet the silence felt like pressure in her skull. This courtroom? It was just another battlefield, and she hadn't come to lose. The hum of the overhead lights filled the silence after the opening arguments. Marlena sat still, her back straight, the same way she'd sat through dozens of briefings overseas. Her heart pounded behind her ribs, but her face gave nothing away. "Ms. Miles," the judge said, looking down at the file. "Let's begin with your testimony. You may speak." She stood slowly, smoothing her uniform as she did. The courtroom seemed to shrink around her as every eye turned toward the medal on her chest. "My name is Marlena Miles," she began, her voice even but low. "I served in the United States Army for 19 years. For tours overseas. I was honorably discharged in 2018. She paused. "I earned the Silver Star in 2014 for actions taken during a convoy ambush in Helmand Province. My team was pinned down for 2 hours. I coordinated air support, retrieved a wounded medic, and carried him through open ground under fire. He lived. 2 others did, too. I did what needed to be done." The courtroom was silent. Even Derek shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "I'm not here to impress anyone with a medal," she continued, her voice growing firmer. "I'm here because I'm a mother. And I've been fighting battles long before this courtroom. But none more important than keeping my son safe." She placed the folded note from Joshua gently on the table. "My son needs stability. I left the army because I couldn't stand to miss another birthday, another soccer game, another night reading Harry Potter together. I've worked 2 jobs since coming home, VA administration during the day, and security at the medical center on weekends." Derek's lawyer stood up. "Your Honor, we acknowledge Ms. Miles' service, but we must address the psychological evaluations. I submitted 3 independent assessments, Marlena cut in, surprising everyone, even herself. All of which confirm that I am mentally sound. Yes, I had PTSD. I sought treatment. I completed therapy. I attend regular check-ins. You don't get through war without scars. But scars don't make you a danger. They make you human. The judge blinked, she added, Derek is trying to use my service against me. But where was he when Josh had pneumonia? When I was home on leave, sleeping next to a humidifier, checking his fever every hour? Where was he when our son needed a new winter coat and I sold my watch to get one? She turned to the judge. My uniform doesn't make me a hero. My son makes me one. Every damn day. The judge nodded slowly. Thank you, Ms. Miles. Please remain standing. He looked over to Derek. Mr. Howard, would you like to respond? Derek rose. His charm turned on like a switch. Your Honor, I have nothing but respect for Marlena's service. But this isn't about the past. It's about Joshua's present and future. She's never stable in one place for long. She works too much. She has no partner. She's alone. Marlena didn't flinch. She let him dig his hole. The judge leaned back. And your role in his life these past years? Derek hesitated. I was pursuing career opportunities. But I've remarried now. My wife works from home. We have a house in Chesterfield. A dog. A backyard. The judge raised an eyebrow. So you were absent, but now you're settled, and you believe that gives you a stronger claim? Yes, sir. The judge turned back to Marlena. He didn't smile. But he didn't smirk either. This hearing is adjourned until tomorrow morning. Ms. Miles, Mr. Howard, please be prepared to provide additional documentation. Court is in recess. The gavel came down and Marlena exhaled slowly. Her hands were shaking slightly as she gathered her things. As she turned to leave, the judge called her name, Ms. Miles. She stopped. That metal? It's not just silver. It's weight. She met his eyes. Yes, Your Honor. It is. Outside the courtroom, Marlena stepped into the sunlit corridor. Her lawyer, she finally had one on standby now, thanks to a non-profit veterans group, was waiting near the vending machines. You hit hard, he said. That was raw. Judges don't forget that kind of testimony. She gave a tired smile. I wasn't trying to be unforgettable. Just honest. As she walked toward the exit, her phone buzzed. A message from Joshua. How did it go? She typed back, one battle at a time, kiddo. We're winning. That night, Marlena stood at her kitchen sink, scrubbing a pan that didn't need scrubbing. The faucet dripped rhythmically. Her modest Richmond apartment was quiet. Joshua was with Derek until the court made a final decision. The silence pressed on her like a memory she couldn't shake. The TV played faintly in the background, some late-night court drama echoing lines she had actually heard that morning. Objection, Your Honor. She turned it off. She dried her hands and walked to the small bookshelf in the corner. On the top shelf sat a framed photo, her and Joshua at his last birthday. He had frosting on his nose, and her smile in the picture looked tired but whole. She stared at it. What if the court believed Derek? What if that smirk of his today, so smug, so rehearsed, wasn't overconfidence but certainty? Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated. Answered. Ms. Miles? A woman's voice said, cautious. This is, Amber Jennings. I'm not sure if you remember me. Marlena frowned. Amber? I used to live 2 apartments down from Derek. In Midlothian. The name clicked. Marlena had met her once. Briefly, when dropping Josh off on a weekend visit. I didn't know if I should call, but I saw your name on the court docket. Public record, right? I figured, maybe you should know something. Marlena sat down slowly. Go ahead. Amber hesitated. A few months ago, I heard yelling in Derek's apartment. Joshua was there. I knocked. Derek opened the door. His face was red, like really red, and he reeked of something strong. I think it was whiskey. I asked if everything was okay and he snapped at me. Marlena's grip tightened around the phone. Amber continued. He told me to mind my business. But the next day, Joshua had this bruise on his arm. Small, but dark. I asked him about it. He said it was nothing. I didn't push. I should have said something. I'm saying it now. Marlena's voice came out tight. Did you report it? No. I was scared. He knows people. But I'll testify. If it helps. Marlena closed her eyes. Thank you, Amber. They hung up. The panicked rage rose slow but hot in her chest. She stood abruptly and paced the room. Her instincts, the same ones that had kept her alive overseas, had told her something was wrong each time Joshua returned from Derek's house quieter than before. She'd asked him about it. He always smiled, shook his head, said he was tired. He was protecting her. The next morning, Marlena arrived early at the courthouse. Her lawyer met her on the steps, holding a coffee in one hand and a stack of printed emails in the other. "We got something," he said. "Amber Jennings just emailed a sworn statement. Plus, we've subpoenaed Derek's ER records from March. Turns out he checked in for a broken hand the day after Josh had that fall." Marlena's eyes darkened. "He told the court Joshua tripped on a soccer ball." "Not anymore, he didn't." Inside the courtroom, Derek sat unshaken. His lawyer whispered in his ear, eyes darting to Marlena's team. Marlena said nothing, but she met Derek's eyes. And held them. For the first time in years, he looked away first. When the judge entered and the session resumed, her lawyer rose. "Your Honor, new testimony has emerged that we believe fundamentally changes the context of this custody dispute." He handed over the affidavit. The judge read in silence. His expression slowly changed, from neutrality to concern. Marlena watched the shift happen in real time. "We request the court admit Ms. Jennings' statement and consider an emergency review of the child's safety while in Mr. Howard's custody." The judge looked over his glasses. "Mr. Howard, do you wish to respond?" Derek leaned forward, visibly sweating now. "This is ridiculous. It's a smear campaign. That woman's unstable. She lived in that building for 6 weeks and left because she couldn't pay rent." Marlena's lawyer didn't flinch. Irrelevant to the content of her statement. "And Your Honor, we also received hospital records showing Mr. Howard sustained an injury consistent with striking a hard object, exactly when Joshua returned home with a suspicious bruise." The judge sat back. "I'm placing a temporary restriction on Mr. Howard's custodial rights," he said. "Joshua Miles will remain in the care of Ms. Miles pending further investigation. This court does not take accusations of this nature lightly." Marlena closed her eyes. It wasn't over. But it was the beginning of the truth coming to light. As she left the courtroom, her phone buzzed again. A text from Joshua. "Are you okay?" She replied, "I am now. We both are." The courthouse lobby was nearly empty when Marlena arrived with Joshua the next morning. He clutched her hand tightly, his other arm wrapped around a worn paperback of Percy Jackson. His eyes darted around, unsure if he was about to be scolded, questioned, or simply misunderstood again. She knelt to meet his eyes. "You don't have to be scared." "I'm not," he said quickly. Then softer, "I'm just nervous." "I know. But you just tell the truth. That's always enough." He nodded. The court-appointed child psychologist, Dr. Helen Reyes, met them outside courtroom 4B. A calm, middle-aged woman with clear eyes and a voice like warm tea. She bent to Joshua's level. "You ready to talk to the judge?" she asked. "It'll be just the three of us. Nobody else." Joshua hesitated, then nodded again. Marlena watched them disappear behind the thick wooden doors. Time crawled. She paced the hallway for nearly an hour. She counted her steps. Watched people come and go. She tried to guess by the rhythm of Joshua's gait when he returned whether he was okay. He walked out holding Dr. Reyes' hand. He looked relieved. "Mom," he said, voice hushed, "I told them everything." She pulled him into a hug. "I'm proud of you." He squeezed back hard. He used to yell so loud the walls shook. "I told them that. And I said I want to live with you." Tears threatened, but she blinked them back. "You did good." In the next session, Marlena sat at her table as Dr. Reyes addressed the court. Derek looked stiff, his hands folded too tightly. "I've conducted a standard evaluation of Joshua Miles," Dr. Reyes began. "He's intelligent, emotionally aware, and displays signs of anxiety linked to household conflict." He described episodes of verbal aggression from Mr. Howard, some possibly escalating to physical intimidation. Derek muttered to his lawyer. But the judge raised a hand for silence. Dr. Reyes continued. "Joshua expressed a consistent, clear preference to live primarily with Ms. Miles. He cited feelings of safety, comfort, and emotional support. He was not coached. His language was his own." The judge looked to Marlena. "Ms. Miles, do you have anything to add?" She stood slowly. "I've never asked my son to take sides. I told him the truth mattered more than anything. I've spent the last 12 years trying to shield him from the worst of the world, even when it came through his own father. I left the army because I wanted to fight the right war. The one that mattered. The one that meant I'd be home when he needed me." She paused. "This courtroom isn't just about where he sleeps. It's about who listens when he talks." The judge was quiet for a long moment. He then addressed both parties. "This court will issue a preliminary decision pending full investigation outcomes and continued child welfare monitoring. But based on today's evidence and professional testimony, Joshua Miles will remain in the full custody of Ms. Marlena Miles for the next 60 days. Derek muttered under his breath. His lawyer leaned in, already whispering next steps. Marlena didn't hear them, she only heard Joshua's voice in her memory. "I want to live with you." As they left the building, hand in hand, Joshua looked up at her. "Does this mean I'm staying?" She smiled. For now, yes. And we'll keep fighting for always. They walked down the courthouse steps into the Virginia morning sun. Cars passed. Pigeons fluttered by the old monument nearby. It was an ordinary day in an extraordinary chapter of their lives. Joshua kicked a pebble down the sidewalk. Can we get ice cream? She laughed softly. You read my mind. The next week unfolded like a reprieve. Joshua stayed with Marlena in their modest apartment, doing puzzles at the kitchen table, practicing spelling with an intensity that made her smile. He'd begun to relax, his shoulders looser, his sleep deeper. No more flinching at sudden noises. No more muttering in his sleep, but the courtroom still loomed. The judge had set a 60-day period for further review, and Derek's legal team was already requesting another hearing. Marlena could feel it, their strategy shifting, becoming more aggressive now that Joshua's voice had tipped the scales. That Monday, while cleaning out an old file cabinet to find tax records for her lawyer, Marlena stumbled upon something she hadn't seen in years. A thick, faded folder marked Custody, Original Filing. She opened it and sifted through yellowing documents, court receipts, and scribbled notes. At the back, a thin packet caught her eye. Typed, formatted, and signed. She recognized it immediately. It was a draft of a custody agreement Derek had once written up through a private mediator, not filed, never used. She'd refused to sign it back then because it demanded sole custody for him, in exchange for financial support she didn't want. But that wasn't what made her stomach drop. It was the clause, page 4, paragraph 3. Ms. Miles may be granted weekend visitation contingent upon abstaining from all VA-recommended mental health treatments, including but not limited to therapy or prescription management. She stared at it to proof that Derek had tried to manipulate her mental health treatment as a bargaining chip. Proof that he had once insisted that not treating her PTSD made her more fit as a parent, before he changed his narrative in court. To call her unstable for receiving treatment, she scanned the pages and emailed them to her lawyer within minutes. An hour later, she was sitting across from him in a small downtown office. This changes things, he said, flipping through the printout. It's not just unethical, it's potentially unlawful coercion. He was trying to force you into abandoning therapy so he could control visitation. That paints his credibility in court as manipulative at best, dangerous at worst. He leaned forward. If the judge sees this, it could impact more than custody. It could open Derek up to sanctions or a referral for parental alienation. Marlena swallowed. I didn't even remember I kept it. You didn't. You kept it because part of you knew you might need it one day. He paused, then asked gently, do you want to go public with this? If we submit this to the court, it will be part of the official record. Joshua might read it someday. She hesitated, then nodded. He deserves to know the truth, when he's ready. 2 days later, in court, the judge skimmed the document in silence. Derek's lawyer objected immediately. This draft was never signed or filed. It's hearsay. The judge didn't even look up. The language is explicit. And it was emailed from Mr. Howard's official work address. That's admissible. Derek sat stone-faced, the blood draining from his cheeks. Marlena didn't look at him. She looked at the judge. The judge placed the file down, adjusted his glasses, and said in a voice cool as marble, this document suggests a deliberate attempt to leverage mental health treatment encouraged and even required by federal agencies, as a condition for parental access. That is deeply troubling. He tapped his pen twice on the bench. This court has a duty to prioritize the well-being of the child. What I see here is not concern for the child, but control over the mother. He looked at Marlena. Ms. Miles, thank you for bringing this forward. We will reconvene in 48 hours to discuss final custody arrangements. I will not delay further. Court adjourned. Marlena walked out into the corridor. Joshua was waiting with a book in his lap. He looked up as she approached. You're smiling. He said. Yeah, she said, brushing his hair back. And this time, it's not just hope. It's progress. The courtroom was unusually quiet that morning. Even the bailiff, usually chatty with the clerks, stood stiff by the door. Word had spread. The judge would be allowing cross-examination of Derek based on the newly submitted document, the one that proved his coercive tactics. Marlena sat near the front, her uniform replaced with a simple navy blouse and slacks. She wanted the court to see her as a parent today, not a soldier. Her lawyer sat beside her, his legal pad nearly full already, underlining key questions he drafted overnight. Derek walked in 10 minutes late. He looked thinner than usual. Hair mussed, eyes ringed with fatigue. Natalie trailed behind him, tight-lipped and silent. As he took the stand, he still tried to present the charm, the practiced pauses, the slight smile, the smooth tone. But it lacked conviction. Mr. Howard, Marlena's lawyer began, rising to approach the stand. Can you confirm that this custody agreement draft originated from your work email in August of 2021? Derek shifted. Yes. But it was a negotiation. Draft. Not a real offer. Let's talk about that draft, the lawyer continued, pacing slowly. Why did you suggest removing visitation rights unless Ms. Miles refused mental health treatment recommended by the VA? Derek looked to his lawyer, then back. Because I was worried, therapy made her too introspective. She was distant. Distracted. Marlena's lawyer didn't blink. So, your position was that actively treating PTSD made her a less fit mother? I didn't say that. You implied it in writing. Silence. Do you believe Marlena is a dangerous parent? No, Derek said, faltering. Not dangerous. Just unpredictable. Has she ever harmed your son? No. Has she ever neglected him? No. Has she ever put herself before him? Another pause. No. The judge leaned forward slightly. So your entire basis for seeking sole custody is your perception that her mental health disqualifies her, despite no evidence of harm, neglect, or poor parenting? Derek's mouth opened, then closed. Marlena didn't smile. She didn't need to. Her lawyer flipped to another page. Mr. Howard, do you remember the weekend of March 11th? Joshua came home with a bruise on his right forearm. You told the court he tripped over a soccer ball. Derek nodded, slowly. Do you remember checking yourself into the emergency room the next day for a hand fracture? Yes. Was that hand injury caused by you striking something? Silence. The judge interjected. You are under oath, Mr. Howard. Derek finally said, yes. I punched a wall. Marlena stared at him. So did the courtroom. Was Joshua present when that happened? Yes. Marlena's lawyer let the silence linger. No further questions, Your Honor. Derek's lawyer didn't rise for redirect. The damage was done later, outside the courtroom. Marlena stood at the base of the courthouse steps while Joshua played with his backpack zipper beside her. You looked calm in there, he said. I've been scared before, she replied. This wasn't fear. It was something else. What? Truth. He nodded. Will I have to talk again? Not unless you want to. Joshua hesitated, then said quietly, I don't want to go back to Dad's. I know. She looked toward the courthouse. She didn't know what the final ruling would be. But for the first time, she could see the end. Not as a cliff, but as a solid path. A path they'd walk together. The courthouse was closed on Sundays, but Marlena found herself parked across the street from it anyway. The building stood solemn against a gray Virginia sky, columns casting long shadows across the steps. Joshua was spending the day at a friend's house, a birthday party with pizza and laser tag. Marlena told him to go, told him she'd be fine. She needed the silence. She reclined her seat, eyes fixed on the massive glass doors she'd walked through so many times over the past weeks. Each time had stripped away another layer of armor she hadn't even realized she still wore. It wasn't just the uniform. It was everything she'd buried under it, the moments overseas when her hands shook while loading her rifle, the night she carried a wounded friend across open ground. Heart pounding with the knowledge she might not make it back, the early mornings after she returned, when Joshua's footsteps outside her door would wake her in panic, and most of all, the nights she stared at the ceiling, asking herself if she'd really done enough to be called a good mother. She hadn't cried through the hearings, or the testimony, or even Joshua's quiet confessions, but now, alone, with the city hushed around her, the tears came, not in torrents, but in steady surrender. She cried for the girl she'd once been, before the war, for the woman who fought too long without rest, for the mother who had been told, by a man she once loved, that she wasn't enough, and for the boy who had to be brave far too soon. When the tears dried, she reached into the glove box and pulled out her service medal, the one she'd taken off after the first hearing. The Silver Star. Its weight felt different now, not just valor, but memory, pain, love, all the reasons she'd kept going. She traced the inscription on the back, for gallantry in action. But there was no medal for this kind of bravery. No uniform for this war. She pulled out her phone and opened a draft email she'd been avoiding. The subject line was simple, statement for final hearing. She began to type. To the court, I am not a perfect mother. I've been tired, I've been afraid, and I've made mistakes. But I have never stopped showing up. This battle isn't just about custody. It's about voice. About how we define strength in parents, and how often we ignore it when it wears combat boots or works night shifts. I served my country with everything I had. Now, I serve my son. He is my peace after years of war. He is my reason. Please don't mistake quiet for weakness, or resilience for coldness. I've survived both war zones and custody courts. And I still believe in justice. Respectfully, Marlena Miles. She hit save. Not send. Not yet. Later that night, she picked up Joshua. He was buzzing from excitement, his face sticky from cake frosting. Mom, we played teams. I was team leader. Of course you were, she said, smiling. He looked at her seriously. I told them my mom was a soldier. She raised an eyebrow. You did? He nodded. I said you don't lose. Ever. She tousled his hair. Not when it counts. As they drove home, the radio low, Joshua dozed off in the passenger seat. Marlena reached over and gently adjusted his seatbelt. The weight in her chest had shifted. It was still there, but it felt shared now, and that made all the difference. The courtroom walls had begun to feel familiar, like the interior of a tent after weeks in the desert. Marlena moved through the routine of legal proceedings with quiet focus, papers filed, statements read, appointments kept. The final hearing was days away now, but sleep was elusive. That night, the dream came again, the same one, always beginning with heat, not emotional heat, real, sweltering heat, the kind that sticks to your skin and seeps into your bones. She was back in Helmand Province, 2014. Summer. Dust in her teeth. Her helmet sat heavy on her head. The hum of the convoy surrounded her, diesel and radio chatter filling the space between each breath. Then, the explosion, everything flipped, sound became static. Color drained from the sky. Her ears rang, a high, merciless whine. She was outside the Humvee now, crawling through sand and blood. Gunfire cracked in the distance. A medic shouted, "We're pinned." She saw him, Corporal Vance, barely conscious. Bleeding from the leg. She ran, the bullet tore through her vest but didn't stop her. She threw her body over his, shielding him. Another soldier screamed from behind cover, "We need air support." Marlena grabbed the radio, Echo 4 requesting. Immediate evac. Coordinates 357 by 821. We have wounded, hostile fire active. Static. Then a voice, Echo 4, support inbound. Hold position. She didn't hold, she lifted Vance across her shoulders, dragging him 50 feet to the broken wall where the others hid. Her legs burned. Her arms shook. But she didn't stop. Couldn't. It wasn't heroism. It was instinct. Survival. Duty, and something more. She remembered whispering, "You're not dying here. You have people waiting." Now, in the quiet of her bedroom, Marlena sat upright, drenched in sweat. Her breath came shallow, the remnants of war clinging to her like fog. She rose and stepped into the kitchen, lit only by the fridge light. She poured water. Sipped. Breathed. Joshua's bedroom door creaked. He appeared, rubbing his eyes. "Mom? I'm okay," she whispered. "Go back to bed." He walked to her, sleepy and small, and leaned his head on her side. Was it the dream again? She nodded. He didn't ask questions. He never pressed. Instead, he said, "I had one too." What happened? We were in a courtroom. But it was different. Everyone was gone. Just me, you, and Dad. She tensed. What did he say? Nothing. That was the weird part. He looked quiet. Like he finally didn't know what to say. She stroked his hair. That might happen in real life too. He smiled against her shirt. Good. They stood there for a while, mother and son, held together by truth unspoken. Later, after tucking him back in, Marlena sat at her desk. She opened the letter she'd drafted to the court. Read it again. This time, she clicked send. To the clerk of the court, please add this to my official statement for the final custody hearing. Sincerely, Marlena. Miles outside, the streetlights buzzed faintly, casting amber halos on the pavement. Inside, Marlena felt lighter than she had in months. The past hadn't left her, but she had learned to live beside it, and that was strength, too. Derek hadn't slept in days. He sat in the corner of the guest room, Natalie's old home office, lit only by the dull glow of his laptop. Court documents were scattered across the desk. He stared at them, unread, the words bleeding into each other. The hearing was in 48 hours. And for the first time since filing for custody, he wasn't sure what he wanted. No, that wasn't true. He wanted to win. Derek always wanted to win. But the goalpost had moved. What had started as a fight for custody had become something else. A reckoning. He sipped cold coffee and glanced at a picture on the wall. Him and Joshua, 3 summers ago, holding fish on a dock at Smith Mountain Lake. Joshua was laughing. Derek was smiling, but it looked practiced now, artificial. He'd been a decent father once. But something changed after the divorce. Maybe it was the way Marlena carried herself, quietly, steadily, even after everything fell apart. Like she didn't need him anymore. Like she never had. He used to joke about her being more soldier than woman. At first, it was teasing. Then it was bitterness. Then it was envy. She had a purpose. Something larger than herself. And Derek, he had promotions that stalled. A mortgage he could barely maintain. A second marriage he was already halfway detaching from, and a son who had started flinching when he raised his voice. That thought returned now, again and again. He didn't hit Joshua, not really, not like the monsters on the news. But he yelled. He slammed doors. He drank too much some nights. He made Joshua afraid. The file Marlena's lawyer had submitted, that old custody draft, was real. He remembered writing it in a moment of anger. A play for control, not safety. He'd told himself it was about structure, but really, it was about pride that he hadn't been trying to protect Joshua. He'd been trying to punish Marlena. That realization gnawed at him like rust. Natalie entered quietly, holding her phone. "You're still up?" "Couldn't sleep." She stood in the doorway for a moment. "Are you going to fight this to the end?" He didn't answer. She set the phone down. Maybe letting go isn't losing." He looked at her, startled. "You think I should give up?" "I think Joshua's already told the court who he trusts." Silence settled between them. She left without another word. Derek stared at the wall. He remembered something Marlena said years ago, during their last real argument, before she moved out. "You want the title of father, Derek. But not the work. Not the nights. Not the questions. You want obedience, not connection." He hadn't responded then. Just left, but tonight, the words echoed, louder than ever. He closed the laptop. For the first time, Derek considered that the battle might not be his to win, or to lose. It might simply be his to walk away from, with what little dignity remained. The courtroom was nearly full. Marlena arrived early, as always, dressed in a charcoal suit with clean lines and soft edges. She didn't wear the medal this time. She didn't need it anymore. Her strength was no longer something to prove. It simply was. Joshua wasn't present, per the judge's instruction, but she felt him with her, every step. The way he grinned over breakfast that morning. The way he whispered, "You've got this, Mom." Derek arrived last, his lawyer beside him. He looked more composed than he had in weeks, but there was something deflated in his posture, something resigned. The judge entered and called the session to order. "This court has reviewed all submitted evidence, personal testimonies, psychological evaluations, and supplemental materials," he began. "Today, we render final judgment on the custodial arrangement of Joshua Miles, age 12. Marlena's heart pounded once. Then steadied. The judge continued, eyes scanning the room slowly. "In matters of custody, the guiding principle is always the child's best interest. That phrase is not just legal, it's human. It demands we look past appearances, past reputations, and even past well-meaning intentions." He looked toward Derek. "Mr. Howard, this court recognizes your efforts to maintain a relationship with your son. However, the record shows troubling patterns, emotional volatility, inconsistent presence, and attempts to manipulate custodial agreements in ways that served your position more than your child's well-being." Derek stared at the table. The judge turned to Marlena. "Ms. Miles, your military service does not entitle you to custody. But your conduct, both past and present, reflects a deep, consistent commitment to your son's emotional and physical safety. You sought help when needed. You maintained stability through adversity. And most importantly, you listened, to your son, to your own limitations, and to this court." Marlena's hands trembled once, then stilled. "It is the opinion of this court," the judge said, pausing deliberately, "that full legal and physical custody of Joshua Miles be awarded to Ms. Marlena Miles." The room exhaled. Derek's lawyer placed a hand on his shoulder, but Derek didn't react. Marlena closed her eyes. Not out of relief. Out of sheer release, the judge added, "Supervised visitation rights may be granted to Mr. Howard, contingent on completion of anger management counseling and parenting classes. Review to follow in 6 months." The gavel came down. Final, court adjourned. Marlena stood slowly, her lawyer quietly shaking her hand. She turned to leave, only to find Derek standing near the door. Their eyes met. For the first time, he didn't smirk, argue, or plead. Instead, he said, "He's lucky to have you." She nodded. "He deserves the best." He didn't respond. Just stepped aside and let her pass. Outside, the air was crisp. Joshua was waiting in the park across the street, sketchbook in hand. He looked up as she crossed. He didn't ask, she didn't speak, she simply opened her arms, and he ran into them. The first Monday after the ruling was just that, a Monday. No hearings. No deadlines. No last-minute affidavits. Just Marlena and Joshua, standing in the kitchen as sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting gentle stripes across the countertop. Joshua poured cereal. Marlena made coffee. They didn't say much, and that was the beauty of it. The chaos had faded, leaving behind a strange, welcome stillness. A new kind of silence, not the haunted quiet of uncertainty, but the kind that feels earned. Whole. The kind that follows a storm. At 7:45 a.m., Marlena grabbed her keys and her VA badge. "Text me when you get home from school," she said. Like always, Joshua grinned, slipping on his backpack. She studied his face, how much older he looked. Lately. More than just 12. Older from what he'd seen. Yet lighter now, too. Less weighed down. They walked to the car in the cool morning air. "Do you think he'll ever come back?" Joshua asked. Suddenly, she paused. "Your dad?" "Yeah. Not for custody. Just as someone better." Marlena considered the question, surprised by his tone, neither bitter nor hopeful. Just curious, I think people can change, she said. But it's not up to us to wait for it. Joshua nodded, thoughtful. She dropped him off with a quick hug and watched him disappear into the stream of students. Then she drove to the VA hospital, a quiet pride settling into her chest. The work was routine, filing, scheduling, speaking with veterans about benefits and paperwork. But that day, one man lingered at her desk longer than most. A tall, soft-spoken Marine in his early 50s. I heard about your case, he said quietly. Word gets around. She raised an eyebrow. Didn't realize I was news. You are, he said. In a good way. He left a moment later, but something about the exchange stayed with her. A quiet kind of solidarity. She'd fought this battle not just for herself, but for women like her. Parents like her. Veterans like her. The ones who were more than the scars they carried. That evening, back at home, Joshua was sprawled on the couch doing math homework. Marlena cooked pasta. The radio played quietly in the background, an old jazz station she hadn't tuned into in years. Can I ask something? Joshua said, sure. Do you think I'll remember all this when I'm older? She stirred the pot. Some of it. Which parts? The parts that mattered, she said. Not the shouting. Or the court dates. But how we made it through. How we kept going. He didn't say anything for a while and then, almost casually, I think I want to write about it one day. Like a book. From a kid's view. She turned, surprised, but not entirely. You should. Your voice matters. He smiled. Might be a comic book, though. Even better. Dinner was quiet. Comfortable. Later that night, Marlena stood at the window, watching the lights flicker across their neighborhood, porch lamps, flickering TVs, the occasional bark of a dog in the distance. Life, unremarkable and beautiful. She pressed her hand against the glass, grounding herself. This wasn't a victory lap. There was no finish line, but there was peace, and that, after everything, was more than enough. 1 year later, the leaves had turned amber and ochre in Richmond, sweeping across sidewalks and gathering under porches like forgotten letters. Marlena stood at the edge of the soccer field, bundled in a windbreaker, a travel mug of coffee in her hands. Joshua jogged out onto the field with his team, taller now, stronger. A year made a world of difference. He waved once, casually, before slipping into formation. The whistle blew. The game began and Marlena took a seat in the folding chair she always brought. The wind whipped gently around her, rustling the program she held, one printed by the school, Youth and Resilience, Stories from Our Lives. Inside, on page 7, was a short story titled The Medal. Written by Joshua Miles. She cried the night she read it for the first time, not because it was sad, but because it was true. It didn't dramatize the custody battle, or villainize his father, or glorify her own actions. It simply captured the tension, the silence, the love. The moment he saw her on the witness stand. The weight of the medal. The power of being heard. Marlena had asked him if he wanted to talk to his father again. He'd shrugged. Maybe someday. But I'm okay for now. That was enough. No bitterness. No pressure. Just space. After the game, Marlena and Joshua walked back to the car. He was flushed from the cold, still buzzing from a goal he'd assisted. Did you see the pass? He asked. Perfect arc, she said. Like something out of a playbook. They drove to their favorite diner, one with mismatched booths and hand-drawn menu signs. Joshua ordered his usual. Marlena sipped her coffee, watching the world move on around them. There were no reporters. No lawyers. No courtrooms, just life. And that was the victory. As they left, Marlena paused by the bulletin board near the door, covered in flyers for church events and piano lessons. At the corner, a new flyer caught her eye. Veterans in Custody, Know Your Rights, sponsored by the same nonprofit that had helped her find legal support months ago. She smiled faintly. Took a pen from her bag. Scribbled something on the flyer's bottom edge. Ask for Marlena. I've been there. She pinned it back up and walked out. In the car, Joshua adjusted the volume on the stereo, playing a playlist she hadn't heard before, his own mix. Guess what, he said, buckling his seatbelt. They want to publish the story in the school journal next month. Really? She smiled. He nodded. They said it's emotionally honest. Whatever that means. Marlena looked at him, truly looked, and saw a boy who'd been through fire and come out shaped, not shattered. It means it matters, she said. He leaned back in his seat, content. As they drove home, the sky turned soft with the early setting sun. Light filtered through the clouds like something holy but familiar. No dramatic finale. No confetti, just a mother and son on a quiet street in Virginia, their story still unfolding, steady as breath, and for the first time in a long time. Marlena didn't feel like she was bracing for the next battle. She felt free.